Yeah, okay, it's official. I've got a lot of hope for Saturday's game.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you so much for kicking off your day with us here at Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. Please rate, review, subscribe, comment below how you're feeling about this game because, guys, first of all, I never thought we'd be in this situation on the eve of the Paul Bunyan game with that H word. That's right. We're talking hope. I did not think that we would ever get to this point here as Michigan State fans for this year's game. Even just going back to the offseason, look, the early line comes out for a few sports books. FanDuel is one of them, all right? Michigan State 24-point underdogs. Kind of makes sense, too. Rebuilding year, 60-plus new faces, and oh yeah, that's right. The team you're playing just won the national title. Sure, they're going to take a step down here no matter what because you can't get any better than the mountaintop, but yeah. And then, oh my goodness gracious, MSU, okay, well, they look okay, and then, well, Michigan doesn't look okay whatsoever, and then, guys, after what happened last week with Michigan State coming out of that bye week, having their best game in 3 years, with Michigan coming out of their bye week, laying down 7 points against an Illinois team that sure ranked in the top 25, but maybe for not that much longer. Okay, I'll do it. I'll set myself up ready to get hurt on Saturday because I've got the most dangerous thing a fan can have right now. I've got some hope for our Michigan State Spartans going into Saturday, and here's why. I'm not just, going to say all this without giving any rhyme or reason to it. No, let's talk about why Michigan State can win this game on Saturday. First and foremost, it's the man of the hour of the offseason or the regular season, any way you want to slice it. It's all about Aidan Chiles. Now, of course, a lot of this stuff is just evergreen, no matter who the matchup is, for the most part. There are some matchups like your Oregons of the world or your Ohio States of the world that you could be really good. Doesn't matter how good of a quarterback you are if the rest of the team, just can't match it even on your best days. But guys, against most teams, you have a quarterback like Aidan Chiles, a dual threat that we saw a lot in the last 2 games. And what I mean by that is they have unlocked designed runs by Aidan Chiles. They were reluctant to do those to start the year. Probably has something to do with, well, you want to preserve his health. This season's only going to go as far as Aidan goes. You don't want our guy getting popped 13 times a game, just running wild like a baby deer out there, right? The last 2 games, they've combined for 9 designed rushes for Aidan Chiles. He's generated 86 yards off those designed runs. All right, you've also seen just improvement in his decision-making. Yes, of course, it was a little wonky to start the year. Not great against Florida Atlantic, certainly not great against Boston College. But the 3 games since that evening in Chestnut Hill, you've seen him improve with decision-making, where he's putting the ball, staying out of danger for the most part. And now he just has 2 picks in the last 3 games. Now, is it perfect? No, of course not. But he's certainly trending in the right direction here. And albeit against some really good defenses they have down there in Columbus and over at Eugene, Oregon. And oh, yeah, that defense that just came to Spartan Stadium for homecoming, that's one of the best defenses year in and year out. Certainly one of the best coach units with Phil Parker over there at Iowa. And, oh, yeah, guys, he's found a running mate right now. Aidan Chiles has. He is cooking with Nick Marsh right now. Damn it all, if he's a true freshman, who cares about that? Nick Marsh is looking like a real deal right now for Michigan State. But let's talk specifically what gives Aidan Chiles perhaps an upper hand in this matchup. And it's Aidan Chiles against the blitz. Yes, Michigan loves themselves a blitz, all right? The last 2 games, they've blitzed the opposing quarterback over 50% of dropbacks, all right? Well, let's take a look at Aidan Chiles. How has he done against the blitz so far this year? All these numbers, courtesy of Pro Football Focus. Well, last week against Iowa, he was blitzed 13 times. All right, in that, he got off 12 passes, 9 of 12 passing. That's 75% completion. Oregon, they blitzed him 15 times, got 10 passes off, 7 of 10 passing, 2 of those being scrambles as well. Ohio State, they blitzed him 10 times. He went 7 of 9 against the blitz. Now, it wasn't perfect all season long, right? Like Boston College, he got blitzed plenty. That was just a rough night overall for Aidan Chiles. Still had some good moments, let's not get it wrong here, but that was a tough night too. Now let's go to Maryland. That's how far back we're going to go here because the Terrapins, my goodness gracious, they were out for Aidan Chiles' blood that evening. 25 blitzes against our quarterback here, guys. Still solid. 15 of 23 passing. That's a long way. That's a lot of numbers to say that, you know what, even for being a young quarterback, still getting to know the college game early in his career, does pretty well against the blitz, finds the hot routes, right, guys? I mean, so, you know what? You want to be matchup specific? Well, there it is right here. Now, why else do we feel good about this game right now? Is that it could sound lazy. I truly don't think it is. I think that a lot of us can see it. There's a lot of parallels between this matchup and the one that we just got taking care of business last week against Iowa, right? Specifically, Michigan State's defense versus Michigan offense. The similarities are all over the place. And if anything, really, Iowa has a more explosive run game. I mean, Michigan, they have 29 runs that have gone for 10-plus yards. All right, MSU, for comparison, we don't think much about our run game. We have 4 more runs that are 10-plus yards than Michigan. Or even, you want to go super explosive plays? Michigan has 9 runs that are 20-plus yards this season. Iowa came into last week's game with 19 such runs. So I don't think it's, going crazy saying that, yeah, Iowa has the better run game. And we'll say for that 175-yard run by Caleb Johnson, who I still think is one of the better running backs in the country, they did a fantastic job of bottling him up. Now, the passing game for Michigan, we just saw a quarterback not too long ago, old friend of the Wolverine program, Cade McNamara. Granted, he didn't have his good friends, Connor Stallions, with him. That kind of changed a little bit of things, but he's just an awful quarterback. And you know what? Don't take it from my mouth when I say that Michigan's quarterback this year aren't that great. I talk to literally any other Michigan fan out there. They're going to probably heavily agree with you that it is not great shakes at the quarterback position. But let's go over to Pro Football Focus. Because out of 222 quarterbacks in Division I football with at least 15 dropbacks, Jack Tuttle is graded as the second worst quarterback. Again, guys, out of 222 qualified quarterbacks that have at least 15 dropbacks, the guy they might start Saturday, second lowest graded. Now, Alex Orji, he's the 19th worst, okay? Tuttle's grade on Pro Football Focus is a 33.9. I mean, those are Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite numbers. That's horrendous. And at 25 years old, nevertheless, I just still can't get over that. That's how bad it's looked as a 25-year-old quarterback. I mean, good God, Aidan Chiles, a 19-year-old quarterback who just has 7 starts under his belt. He has more passing yards this season than Jack Tuttle does in his entire career as a 25-year-old quarterback. I mean, get real. It's not a good quarterback situation, just like it's not at Iowa. Now, the receiver room, just like Iowa, it's not great. And, guys, you want me to give you just a damning stat right now about how the receiver situation is at Michigan? There's 7 receivers that have recorded stats so far this season, have 342 combined receiving yards. Nick Marsh himself, true freshman, who's missed one game this season, has 433 receiving yards, guys. 91 more receiving yards than Michigan's whole receiver room. Chase Glasser of Spartans Illustrated, who we talk to every week, he mentioned that at the end of the show. It was after recording. He said, yeah, you know what? Marsh has more yards than our whole receiver room. And I thought he was doing a bit. My God, unfortunately for himself, Michigan grad, of course, he does great work here. But fortunately for his team, that is incredibly true. Now, guys, just to add, one more thing, too. I don't know if this offensive line is better than Iowa's either. That's not to say they're a horrible offensive line by any means, but certainly a step back from where we saw them last year, all right? And also dealing with some injury issues. Now, it's not all negative for Michigan as it comes to comparing them against Iowa. Like, Colson Loveland is a substantially better upgrade over Luke Lachey, who's also pretty good tight end himself over in Iowa. But Colson Loveland, look, he's good at pass blocking. He's going to line up as a tight end in the slot at wideout. He is a first-round draft pick for a reason here. Like, that's going to be another new wrinkle. But, yeah, that's what we got right there. Just two reasons. We got more, of course, guys. But first, I just need to talk your ears off about Prize Picks. That is right, guys. Get in the action with Prize Picks. Now, what is Prize Picks? It's the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Now, you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. And Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means that you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Now, how nice is that of Prize Picks, guys? Let's go. Now, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege. All one word, LOCKEDONCollege, to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. You cannot beat that. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's that easy, guys. You just pick more or less on a few stats. Do it over at Prize Picks. Get in on the game with Prize Picks. Run your game. Also, it's almost game day. You already know it. I'm rocking home field clothing from homefieldapparel.com. You already know what I'm going to say if you've listened to our Friday shows, guys. This is the most comfortable clothing you will wear. Got the long sleeve t-shirt on right now. I actually have one of their t-shirts on underneath. You already know I got the hoodies. Actually just made an order earlier today for one of their crew necks. Can't wait for that to get in the mail. But guys, you cannot go wrong with Home Field, because as good as you will feel, you will look even better with their vintage logos. Like, take this one right here. Or there might be some logos that are Michigan State that you may have never seen. Well, that's because they do such a good job of talking to historians, combing through old databases and programs to find the coolest logos over there at homefieldapparel.com. Even sweeter than all that, how about saving money when you smash in promo code Spartan24? It's all one word, Spartan24. That's going to save you 15% off your first purchase. Holidays will be here before we know it. Stock up for the Spartan in your life at homefieldapparel.com with promo code Spartan24. All right, let's get back into it. More reasons that we could see Michigan State winning this game, right? And look, I'll stop myself right here, too, because I'm not saying that this is a walkover for Michigan State in the slightest, right, guys? Let's just talk about this right here, because, yes, similarities between the MSU versus Iowa game. We just talked about Michigan State's defense versus Michigan's offense. It's not the flashiest offense, right? Like, their strength is in the run game. Okay, well, we just stopped a really, really damn good run game last week, right, guys? So where we're going to pump the brakes is that the MSU offense versus the Michigan defense is not exactly similar because, well, Michigan has a stronger front seven. Right, like they got two guys in the defensive line at least that are first-round draft picks. Mason Graham, okay, he's going to go top 10, most likely. Kenneth Grant, he's going to sneak into the first round there. Like, those are really two strong defensive tackles. And it's not to mention either Josiah Stewart. This is your highest-graded edge rusher on Pro Football Focus. He's got 5 sacks, 15 pressures on the season. Like, that's going to be more of a beastly defensive front than you just saw last week against Iowa. So, look, you're going to have to come at least somewhat close to replicating how successful you were in the run game last week. All right, way easier said than done because, well, look, we've seen Michigan State not do well the first 6 games of the season before coming out of nowhere and having their best run game in quite some time last week. So that's where I'm just going to pause right now. And you know what? Remind us that this still will be a tough game. Let's not get it twisted. And yes, Michigan just scored 7 points last week against against Illinois, I should say. And that was 2 early fumbles in the game. They had a field goal blocked in the red zone. They also had an interception in the red zone. So they outgained Illinois. They did move the ball somewhat down the field. Don't get it twisted. It's not like it was, Chip Kelly's Oregon back in the day where it was just run and shoot. But a lot of weird factors in that game too. But at the end of the day, still another loss for this team. And you know what? Let's get back to the reasons why we think we can win. And nothing sexier than talking about this next point, guys. And we're talking, of course, punting that ball. That is right. So Michigan's Tommy Doman Strange year for him. He's actually lost yardage on his average from last year by almost 4 yards. He's got the second lowest punting average in the Big Ten at 41.8 yards per punt. And Ryan Eckley, you already know it. He's banging the crap out of the ball, 48 yards per punt. That is second best in the Big Ten. This game's going to be one of field position. All right, it's going to be an ugly game, first to 20 points sort of game. You need good field position this game. Something like punting can work out. So there's some stats. There's some X's and O's. But, guys, I just got one more point that I want to bring out that you can't quantify with any Pro Football Focus stat. No, crunching tape sort of thing. This is all off the field, and I think the tale of these two locker rooms does play at least a little bit of a role in this game. For example, Team A, the Michigan Wolverines. What did they do last season? Legit or not, asterisk or not, you guys know my thoughts on this. And as a Michigan State fan, probably know your thoughts on it too. But one thing's indisputable. They did not lose a game. They reached the mountaintop of college football last year. Again, legit or not, doesn't matter to them. And less than, 9 months later, here they are fighting for bowl eligibility. And if you think that's a little extreme, go ahead and look at their schedule if they lose this one to Michigan State. Find me 2 wins there. That's got to just at least dampen morale a little bit. You have guys that are... Look, the Will Johnson injury thing is strange. He did leave the game last week with a toe injury, and now it's a thing, well, okay, is it that extreme an injury? Is it not actually? But he wants to shut it down to preserve his draft stock. Maybe quitting on the season. Who knows? You had your head coach, Sharon Moore, spending time this week just blocking random media members on Twitter. What kind of a focus do we got going on over there? It's just the way they've done it too this year, especially on offense. A complete lack of clarity at quarterback. Coming out of the bye week, I know we just made a few excuses for them, but still at the end of the day, scoring 7 points just to add to another example of an underwhelming offense. If you're on the defense, you can't be too shocked watching that. Meanwhile, here's Team B. It's Michigan State, all right? They're coming off their best win easily since 2021, since the Peach Bowl, guys. Look, you got a newfound confidence in your offense, all right? Your senior quarterback grow week to week. You just saw your run game come out of nowhere and move the ball with relative ease against a really good Iowa defense. All right, and you've also battled adversity throughout this season and have made it out of the other side in many of these times. Just the micro moments too, right? The Boston College game. I know by and large that was a loss, but how many times was the defense put in uncomfortable situations, right? Short fields, cleaning up the slop from the offense. And they delivered, okay? Or, hey, you know what? You want to throw a bone to the offense? Last week, Caleb Johnson rips a 75-yard touchdown. My goodness gracious, how often can Michigan State respond against an Iowa defense? Well, it just turned out every single time. They walked on the field and they put up points again. Or it's not just the micro adversity moments, it's the macro too. They went into that bye week, 3 straight losses. Teeth absolutely kicked in through their skull against Oregon. It didn't go too much better against Ohio State, and just albeit a soul-crushing loss against Boston College in hindsight, and in the moment, I should say. Yeah, but what did this team do over the bye week? They didn't just mope. They didn't give up. I know this sounds like, rah, yeah, what? But really, that is a massively impressive win for Michigan State last week, especially after what we've seen, what adversity-filled moments can do to teams in years past here in East Lansing. Guys, maybe I'm making such a point of this whole locker room thing and the mentality with the teams, because, guys, we've lived this the last few years, haven't we? Doesn't it seem like, when a team just at the slightest bit of inconvenience or the first sign of trouble, they just turtle and then get their shell stomped on? I'm not seeing it with this year's team. Could that bleed over to the other guys? Maybe, maybe not. But if not for nothing else, you have a headstrong team here in East Lansing. Now, we're going to get into the mailbag. Got a whole bunch of questions, guys. And this is going to start off with Jason. Now, Jason wasn't the only one that asked a question that was similar to this, all right? So if I'm not reading your exact question, fear not. A lot of you guys did ask something along the lines of this. Jason writes in, Coach Smith didn't speak much on the rivalry, and the greatest game he could recollect was Jalen Watt's Jackson Day. When it comes to this rivalry, all the stats are thrown out the window and intangibles rule. How great will his disconnect with the rivalry make a difference in the game? Now, he did talk about it earlier this week at the press conference. He was asked, what do you know about this rivalry? And he said, yeah, the one that comes to mind, of course, the Jalen Watt's Jackson game. Who can't remember that one if they were alive for that one? I don't care if you are a Michigan or Michigan State fan. Great times, guys. Now, does he get it, the rivalry? Does he understand the hate? Honestly, I don't know. He actually might never show true emotion to this rivalry if he's here for, 2 more seasons or 22 more seasons, guys. That's just the kind of person that he just seems like he's going to keep everything super even keel and never wear his emotions on his sleeve. But what I do go to, if you're looking for all right, well, who's firing the team up, who's getting them right, I go back to a Spartans Illustrated story that they had in the offseason. And this was about June recruiting visits. Coach Smith has just been here about yay amount of months. Sure, he's the head coach of Michigan State, but wasn't fully ingratiated in the university. And instead of, trying to wave the pom-poms and act like he's been here for 5-10 years and, convince everyone that he knows everything about this program and the history. No, he actually deferred to TJ Duckett. That's right, the old legendary running back, to give the final speech during these official visit weekends. I'm not reporting this. I'm just guessing. I wouldn't be surprised if he calls on, Coach Hawkins, for example, or Coach Meade, guys that have actually played in this rivalry, guys that have been here for, especially Courtney Hawkins, coaching for the last few years, guys that know their way around the block here in this Paul Bunyan game. That wouldn't shock me if you have any, questions of, do they really get the rivalry? No, I don't know, and I really don't think maybe Jonathan Smith does yet, but he knows guys that do, and he's no stranger to delegating those duties, elsewhere in his program. So, and also, guys, just because he doesn't really get the rivalry or, it's his first year, it's still okay. I just ask Coach Tucker how he did in his first year and his second year. Or, even got the players in the locker room. I think it's 60 or 61 new players on the team this year, right, guys? How quick can you really turn it on for this rivalry? Well, just ask Kenneth Walker. I think he turned it on pretty okay in his first and only year here in East Lansing. So, also, just on top of all that, if they don't feel it right now, in the days leading up to the game, which I'm sure they do, but if for some reason they don't, they certainly will as they walk pretty much single file through that super razor thin tunnel that you have to take to go onto the field as the Michigan fans are leaning over the railing. I'm sure just saying all sorts of good lucks and, hey, go get them, champs. I'm sure that little walk through the tunnel, hearing what they have to say to them, I'm sure it's going to stoke a few flames. I got no issue that this team will get up for the game. All right, guys, if you're already fired up for this game and you like where Michigan State sits right now, which at the time of recording, 4.5-point underdogs. This keeps going up and down. 3.5, 4.5. It started at 6.5, but God, my goodness gracious. If you like that, plus a few props in your life, like who's going to score the first touchdown, maybe get an over-under on some receiving yards this game, do it over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, guys. This is the greatest sportsbook out there because, just like I said, bets aplenty and the same game parlays. Well, you could pretty much script your game, put it all in a betting slip, and see if you can make a huge payday. And, well, do it on Sunday, too, because NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That is over at FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Again, guys, FanDuel.com. All right, back into the mailbag here. We got, just a whole lot of questions. I'm sorry if I did not get to yours this week. Try to get to as many as possible, but you know what? We're going to go right after it with Zach, who's very impressed with the running performance last week, just like all of us were. He writes in, what in the hell did we do in the bye week to transform our offensive line performance? Now, Jonathan Smith was asked about the run game and what stuck out to him the most, and he said he's not going to give away everything, but he did mention the variety of looks, right? Just like, okay, just Aidan in the backfield, multiple guys in the backfield, motion beforehand. So there was a little bit more of that too, but really have to give a tip of the cap to Stanton Ramel, who did a great job bumping outside on those outside zone runs where they really stretched the field on those. He was a mobile tackle, and you could see why he was ranked as a high 4-star, even just as a redshirt freshman coming off an ACL injury. And you know what, too? I got to mention Brandon Baldwin, who had to slide from tackle into guard for the first time in his career. I think what was his first start with that? The Ohio State game, I think it was. He looked a lot more comfortable in that role in that last game. So great work by Jim Maholchek, the offensive line coach. But yeah, just market improvement, obviously. Now, Alex writes in, best rivalry moment or game in your lifetime. He also writes in, I'm going to go with the -48 game in 2013. Absolute domination that started an incredible 2-month run that ended up in a crescendo of a Rose Bowl win. Also mentions honorable mentions, trouble with the snap, Kenneth Walker, Smoker to Duckett, Plaxico Burris dominating in 1999. And oh man, oh God. I was so blessed to be a college student at Michigan State from 2010 to 2014 because that 2013 game, I'll remember that too. It was the first play we sacked Devin Gardner. I stand up and I say, that's going to be there all day, baby. And a Michigan fan behind me scoffed and said, oh, yeah, it's going to be there all day. That's going to be there all day in a very mocking tone. And that is the last thing he said to me the rest of the afternoon because, yeah, buddy, that was there all day long. So that was a great moment. I also got to give a nod to 2011. Kirk Cousins cements his legacy, never loses a game to Michigan. And you know what? I'm a student there. We're about 10 rows up in the student section. We're all going crazy after the game in the student section. And then, my goodness, what crazy guy's wearing pads behind me in the student section? Why does he have Cousins on the back of his jersey? Oh my God, that is Kirk Cousins. He climbed up in the student section and was partying right in our row. We got to just grab each other and shake each other and be like, God, it's great. So, no, that's a great moment for me right there. Of course, trouble with the snap game was incredible. I inadvertently got punched in the face by my brother because we frantically got in the middle of my parents' family room for a group hug, and he just rocked me right across the face. Oh, just so many great memories in this rivalry. That's a great question, Alex. Thanks for bringing back the good memories right there. Hopefully, we got more coming up this Saturday. That'd be very nice. Professor writes in, who is your least favorite random U of M player of all time? I'm thinking someone who didn't make NFL or wasn't amazing, but you despised him. Does anyone here remember Drake Harris? Of course you don't. The guy, he did close to nothing at Michigan, but Drake Harris, because you know what? I'm going to hate on the guy for what he did as a teenager. He committed to Michigan State, dual sport athlete out of Grand Rapids. He's going to be a great receiver, great basketball player. And then he decommitted. And it wasn't just the decommit and flip into Michigan, but it was because he wanted to, quote, compete for national championships. Well, what happened in his career? Michigan State 2 years later, college football playoff, quite literally competing for a national championship, and then, well, he never had the career that he wanted. So that's one right there. If you want to take a quick trip to the Spite store, well, I'm working the cash register, baby. That's one right there. It's got to be Drake Harris. Also, Tate Forcier is another good one, but I feel like, he's oddly too popular, even though his career completely flamed out. All right. Now, the name of this person, it's going to perk your ears up right here because Jack Tuttle writes in on Twitter. That's right. Jack Tuttle, not the quarterback. He writes in, who do you think Michigan will start at quarterback? Since my name is really Jack Tuttle, I hope it's him because he sucks. What a tough position that you share the name with Michigan's starting quarterback as a Michigan State fan, Jack. Well, I don't know, guys. You could take it from whoever you want. Joel Klatt, he told you the other week that Jack Tuttle is going to single-handedly change the season for Michigan. Didn't give any reason, didn't give any stats. He just, said, I just think it's going to happen. And, well, you saw how it happened last week. No, my guess is that, again, just no inside information, just a hunch, is that we are going to see some semblance of a two-quarterback system here. Like, Jack Tuttle out for most of the plays, but you know what? They get in the red zone, maybe wildcat it up with Alex Orji. I wouldn't be shocked to see some new wrinkles thrown at Michigan State right now. So that's where I'm going to go with. And David writes in a fantastic question. What's an appropriate emotional hedge bet for the game? Now, every year, I do lay quite a chunk of change on Michigan to win this game, which is incredibly bizarre behavior. I understand this. I try to explain it to people, and the looks I get is as if I'm growing like a third arm out of my forehead sometimes. It's called emotionally hedging your happiness. Like, if I got to see Michigan lift Paul Bunyan and take him off the field, I want to be compensated for it. It's just that easy. So, with that said, I'm not going to give a dollar amount, David, but my FanDuel account will be reading 0 by kickoff. We are going to zero out the account and still pray to God that Michigan State wins that game. But if they don't, fine, I get paid for it. I want to lose this bet, guys. I want to make that very clear. I want to lose this bet. And speaking of bets, would you look at the time? It is time for 5 best bets. Now, guys, we went 3-2 last week, but that is our 4th straight week in the black. We are 26-14 overall in 5 best bets. Now, this week, I can't believe I'm saying this. I am doing this. I just talked about how I love, emotionally hedging my happiness. But, guys, look, with everything we just listed, with how both teams looked last week, with the way the line is moving to 60% of bets, almost 70% of money, yet the line keeps coming down towards Michigan State. Everything I know about sports betting says that you take Michigan State plus 3.5. All right, that's it right there. I'm also going to throw a little cherry on top of that. I'm going to do 2 picks from this game. I'm going to go over 40.5 too. So I think both offenses, I think, aren't as bad as they seem. So, yes, I do think that, Michigan State, I could see scoring 20 points, 25 points, for example. Michigan, can they keep it close? I think they can. So, you know what? Over 40.5 for this game, too. Now, we're going to fly across the country for Oregon versus Illinois. I'm going to go under 54.5. Sure, Oregon can hold up their end of the bargain. I just don't see Illinois scoring enough points to uphold their end of the deal here, too, for this team total. So under 54.5 points for that one. We're going to go Ole Miss. That's right, SEC country, minus 20.5 against Oklahoma. The Running Rebels, they're coming off a bye. They need to start winning and winning right now after 2 losses in their last 3 games. All right? And then there's Oklahoma, who is not good. Who is just flatly not good. I know that 20.5 points is a huge number, but guys, Oklahoma, they got guys that look like me out there playing defensive line. They got guys that look like my 4-year-old kid playing on the offensive line. It's dire straits there in Sooner country. So yes, Ole Miss Rebels minus 20.5. And to take things home, guys, close your eyes and walk into the fire with me on this one. Indiana, they are white hot right now. They got College Game Day on their campus. Washington's kicking off at 9 in the morning body clock time. They're only getting 20% of bets. About 20% of money. Which means, that's right, we are going with Washington plus 6.5 in Bloomington, and I don't think the Rourke injury is not nothing. I still think Indiana does win this game, but man, I think Washington keeps it within striking distance. So just to recap, class, Michigan State plus 3.5. We're also going to go over 40.5 for this Paul Bunyan game. Under 54.5 for Oregon, Illinois, Ole Miss minus 20.5 over the Sooners, and then Washington plus 6.5 over the Hoosiers. Guys, it's the end of the show. That means all that's next is kickoff, and I can feel the heart rate starting to spike and the hairline starting to go back even a little more than it already is. This is going to be a stressful Saturday night. And I don't care that both teams are unranked. I don't care that this is, a juiceless game by and large across the country. But, man, now between these two fan bases, plenty of stakes involved. Oh, boy. This should be a fun one. I hope it's a fun one. We will be back after the game. I'm going to try to make it work on Saturday. I've got quite the schedule on Saturday night, but if not for nothing else, I will see you guys before the weekend ends because I love you guys. And you know what? I just love talking Michigan State football, and thank you guys so much for just leasing out some of your time here to listen to Locked On Spartans. I cannot thank you all enough. You guys are truly the best. All the listeners, all the viewers. God, you guys are just all the greatest. Let's have a great weekend. Let's mix in a water. Let's just hold hands and just walk into this together, guys. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God. Go green.